There we go. We went to your guy.
Zack
Zack Moss,
Moss.
26 years old, will be 26 years old. You're the Colts fan. Talk about him.
Well, I mean, what more is to say about Zack Moss? He's doing a great job this year after not doing great on the Buffalo Bills or even last year. Last year he was
Mhm,
not fantastic. He was traded
mhm.
for Naheem Hines, came to the Colts. He had one more year left on his contract after that year, but this year without Jonathan Taylor, he missed week 1, and within the first 5 weeks of the season, he was the number 2 leading rusher in the NFL after missing one game. Jonathan Taylor came back and his production didn't go immediately down. He still had 3 more good weeks, and now Jonathan Taylor's out. He's doing okay. He's almost at 1,000 yards this season, 6 total touchdowns. Currently, he would be RB23 for fantasy points per game, which makes him a starting running back, an RB2 on most of your lineups as a backup running back in the NFL. That's pretty solid. Again, he's still young. We don't like running backs on their second contract, but he's still relatively young, 26 years old. I can't say that that's old. Both of us can't say that's old. I mean,
Mm.
we're old. He's not. I think if I'm looking at him, I think Indianapolis brings him back. They don't do this often. They've in recent history have only brought 2 running backs back from the rookie contract. They've signed them to 2 extensions. That was Joseph Adai and Jonathan Taylor.
I'm with you. I scoured the teams, the needs, and I don't see him fitting anywhere else but Indianapolis. He's been a freaking beam of hope for that team. And all you Jonathan Taylor managers out there were pretty upset that Moss came out and did amazing after sucking so bad. But I do want to say this: he was in Buffalo. Buffalo gets this rap of like, oh, we need him to go there. We need this person to go there. Once they're in Buffalo, they're gonna ball out. Leonard Fournette's go. As soon as Leonard Fournette signed with Buffalo, I traded him away for whatever I could because I knew he'd be ineffective. Because any running back that goes to Buffalo is totally ineffective. Why? Usage.
He
Why?
hasn't he hasn't even gone off the practice squad. So like
Well, I mean, this Fournette's
but
just he's an
regardless,
example because he's super
yeah.
old. But let's bring up the other guys. Evan Singletary, very wasted there. He had a good yards per carry in Buffalo. He had a lot of opportunities, but when it came down to the red zone, the goal line where you make your money scoring touchdowns, it's the Josh Allen show. It's always going to be Josh Allen until Josh Allen is gone. It's just the way it is. So Zack Moss had a really, I wouldn't say great career in Buffalo. Obviously, he was really, really like unused. He only averaged 39.9 yards per game on the ground, but his career average is 4.3 in that time. He did have some good years where his average was like 5.1. But the point is, when you're not being used, you really can't have a great career. He gets to Indianapolis where he can have a good career, and he's been balling out. He had what do you have? He had 1,282 rushing yards in his entire 3-year career with Buffalo. If Taylor didn't come back, if it was a season where Taylor just never came back, Moss would have broke that easily. He's on pace to break it. No, he's not on pace to break it. I did the math, but he could break it. He's on pace. I think he's averaging 66 rushing yards a game, which is around 1,100 or a little under 1,100 yards. That's freaking great for a guy that nobody expected. I remember listening to a very, very, very high, top of the charts national podcast, top of the charts. As in, I'm not going to name their names, but they are number one, and they've been number one for a very long time. And a guy who I love, respect, think the world of him. Won him in his free agent waiver wire in week 2 and complained about it. This is the worst. I don't want to start Zack Moss. Zack Moss is awful. Zack Moss saved his team, saved your team, saved everyone's team, saved my team. Zack Moss will probably end up back in Indy because he is so good there. I would like to see what he can do. I don't really see a market out there for him. You look at his age range and the running backs that did sign contracts in his age range. It's 2 years, $6 million, 2 years, $9 million. That's what I'm looking like with Zack Moss. Maybe he signs that 2 years, $10 million, but that second year they can get out, opt out of it. That's what we're looking at with Zack Moss because he's nothing special, but he is a contributing player.
I agree. I agree.
Don't look at him as a starter next year. Look at him as a contributor to a football team, but he's not going to be a starter. He didn't do enough to become a starter.
Continue looking at him like you should have looked at him this year. He's the backup for whatever running back you have. So if you have his starter, you might get him too, especially if that starter has injury issues.